I'm Lucia, and I just thought I would invite you into my kitchen today. It's getting ready for the weekend, and I have a quiche in my mind that I want to make. It's a quiche that comes from some friends of mine, the Brackets. It's in their 5 Loaves cookbook. Let me see, I think I've got it right here. I can show it to you. One of my favorite cookbooks, and it's called 5 Loaves. It's from the vegetarian restaurant that they used to run. And anyway, so I thought I'd bring you into my kitchen, so I'm just going to show you the different steps that I do in making this quiche. It's a delicious quiche, and I think you will enjoy it. So I'm just getting started. I put my first 2 ingredients into the blender. I love this recipe because most of it's done in the blender. So I have 1 cup of water and 1 pound of tofu in the blender. I'm actually making a double batch, but I'm just going to show you the one blender, and I have a second blender on the side here where I'll be putting some of the rest of my ingredients. So because of the way that this camera is, you may or may not see my face as I'm doing all of this, but that's okay. I just want you to be able to see the steps as we go through doing it just like as if you were right here with me in my kitchen. So this is not staged. I am not doing this like a cooking school. This is just like a come into my kitchen and enjoy with me. Okay, so next I'm going to put in the rest of the things that go into the blender. So we have cornstarch. I always like to use non-GMO cornstarch because corn tends to be genetically modified. And it calls for 2.5 tablespoons. One of my favorite little slidey measuring spoons. So 1, 2, and a half. So half is 1.5 teaspoons. So there's my half. And then I'm making 2 batches, so I'm just going to measure it out again for my second blender here. 2.5 teaspoons. I think I'm going slow enough. You can probably write this down as we go. All right. The next ingredient is a tablespoon of lemon juice. So let me grab my little handy-dandy measuring spoon. And when I just need a little bit of lemon juice like this, I usually try to keep some lemon juice on hand. This is like an organic lemon juice that I got from Costco. My mom has lemon trees. We're just kind of between seasons right now. Otherwise, I'd probably be using fresh lemon juice off of her tree. But I'm going to put 1 tablespoon of lemon juice into each batch here. And I like to batch things a lot. Like making 2 quiches for the same work as one. Hey, they can freeze, they keep. In this case, I'm actually going to be sharing some with a friend. All right, a tablespoon of vegetable salt or 1.5 teaspoons of salt. So I'm actually going to use my vegetable seasoned salt. Contact me if you want the recipe. I posted it online. It's in my Vegan Recipes with the Harvest Cook Facebook group. It's in a lot of places because I use it for everything. So I'm going to put 1 tablespoon of this in each blender. And I'm going to add some oregano. So it calls for 1/2 teaspoon. So 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. In there, and 1/2 teaspoon in there. And next is 1.25 teaspoons of basil. So 1 teaspoon there, and 1 teaspoon there, and 1/4 more right here and right here. One thing I love about these little sliding measuring spoons is that they fit into your spice jars, which a lot of the round ones don't. So it makes it really fast and easy to measure. 1/4 teaspoon of dill weed. 1/4 teaspoon. There's 1/4 for there, and I think just enough. Whoops. Yeah, sometimes I'm a messy cook. And another, oh, that's not quite 1/4 there. So I think I've got another jar up here in the cupboard. Oh, maybe I accidentally spilled enough here. That'll work. Let's see. Nope, still need just a little more dill. There we go. Put that in there. And there's a 1/4 teaspoon of savory in the recipe, but I don't use savory often enough to keep it on hand. And usually it's really small amounts, so I'm just going to skip it this time. And then it asks for 1½ teaspoons of McKay's chicken style seasoning. I actually have my own chicken style seasoning. I just made up a new batch, and I actually like the flavor even better than McKay's, so I always substitute mine for McKay's. But I'm thinking that my vegetable salt might be a little bit saltier than the one they were using, so I'm only going to put in 1 teaspoon of the chicken, and then I'm going to taste it before I put it in the oven and see if it actually needs that other ½ teaspoon of chicken before I do it, because you can always add more salt, but you sure can't take it out if you get too much. All right, the next thing I'm going to be doing is working on grating some carrot and some zucchini, and then a cup of diced onion. Those don't go in the blender, so I'm going to move my blenders and put my chopping block here, and I'll work on getting the carrots and the zucchini ready. I'm going to set these aside. They're all ready to go. And I have some red onion here, so I'm going to split that red onion between my 2 recipes. Calls for a cup, so here's my 2-cup measuring cup, and I'm just going to put in a mix of the purple onion. And if this looks a little different than yours does, it's because this was actually a leftover onion that's been sitting in my freezer, and so it gets a little bit mushy, you know, when you thaw it out. But when you're going to cook it, it doesn't matter. So here is my onion. Okie dokie. And so I like using my square-bladed Japanese caddy knife for this. See, Japan caddy. It's just excellent for veggies. And this says diced onion. This is not going to go in the blender, so I don't want like really big chunks of onion in my quiche, so I'm going to cut it rather finely. I use my finger here to guide the blade of the knife so I can make really thin slices. When it gets kind of short, I just turn it over so the flat side's on the board. Looks like it's almost time for me to sharpen this knife again. One thing I really can't stand is a dull knife. Having a sharp knife makes your kitchen work so much easier. Oops, let me get this little hard parts out. And let's see how much onion I've got here. It looks like I've got about 1.5 cups. I probably need the rest of this onion. Onions are just so good for you. I like to use onions, and I go through a lot of onions in my kitchen. Almost everything savory that I make has onions in it. So just going to go ahead and chop them up. And then I'll be measuring this and see if that's about the right amount that I need. Okay, looks like I'm getting close here. Yeah, that's going to be just about right since I'm making that double batch. Okay, 2 cups. So I'm going to put that in a bowl. I have 2. And then we'll go next to the zucchini and the carrots. Okay, so now I'm going to take half of my onions and put them in the one bowl. I want some of the purple onions with it. Let's see, that looks like about 1 cup left. I'll put the other cup in my second bowl over here. And then the recipe calls for a cup of grated carrot. So I like to use this machine that my mom's had for like 50 years. I think Salad Master used to make this, and there's modern versions, but it's basically just a non-electric handle crank grater. And it just makes the nicest fine graters. So I'm going to use this. I'll turn it here so you can see it. I've got my peeled and washed carrots, and I'm just going to run them through this little machine. If I can get it to stay stuck with its little suction feet. I probably gotta wet that. Hang on. Turns out I usually do this on the kitchen counter where the feet stick really well. I'm going to see if this works. I've got it on a smooth cutting board. Let's see if that holds it so I can show you how this works. Okay, and I'm going to need 2 cups because I'm making 2 quiches. So I'm going to do one more. This is going to add some really nice color to it as well. All right, so once again, I'm going to split this between my 2 bowls. And then the next ingredient is 1½ cups of grated raw zucchini. So I'm actually going to do the exact same thing with the zucchini. I've got them washed here and ready to grater. So I think guess I'll need a total of 3 cups. Doesn't matter if I've got a little bit of that leftover carrot in there. I'm not going to make a nice pretty quiche. You know, you can use a food processor for this, or you can use a box grater. Whatever you have handy. You have a mandolin with a nice grating attachment, that works too. The idea is you want the pieces to be uniformly thin, and not too big. That will enable the quiche to cook them through very thoroughly. Okay, that looks like that's going to come out to be just about the right amount. This is not like a cake where the measurements have to be exact, but you want them to be relatively close. So these are the three things that don't go into the blender: the onions, the carrots, and the zucchini. Everything else we already have in the blender. And then we're going to blend the tofu, and then we're going to, the tofu with all the seasonings, and then we're going to mix it with the grated vegetables. So let me clean up here and we'll go to that step. Now we're set up to do the blend. So I have the tofu, the water, the cornstarch, lemon juice, all of the seasonings here in the blender. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. I'll probably edit this out so you don't have to listen to a bunch of noise, but I'll let you see how it starts and how it finishes. Always cover the top of your blender before you turn it on, and make sure that it's on the lowest speed. So just a second, let me get my top for this. There we go. All right, here we go. So you can see that this is very smooth. So it's a little bit thick. Okay, and then that's going to be mixed with our veggies here. I'm just going to pour this all in here. And just stir it up. Okay, and then remember I was going to check it and see if it's salty enough, because I cut back a little bit on the chicken style seasoning. I actually think it's salty enough. So the 1 teaspoon of my chicken seasoning instead of the McKay's, and my vegetable salt instead of Veggie Sal or one of those other brands, that's the right amount of salt. That would be just right for this. So now we're ready to pour this into an unbaked pie crust.